My first myth today asks if it's true that Pink Floyd got their name from the blues musicians Pink Anderson and Eddie Floyd. There are actually a ton of different claims as to how Pink Floyd came up with their name, and this question is actually mostly correct. In late 1965, the original lineup of Pink Floyd was playing under the name The Tea Set, but they were playing a gig where there was already a band playing under the name The Tea Set, so they quickly needed a new name. Just hours before they were set to take stage, founding member Syd Barrett was actually at home going through his record collection, and among them all he found two records, one by Pink Anderson and one by Floyd Council. And that is where they got the name from. So as spacey and experimental as Pink Floyd got over the years, their name is actually derived from the names of two Piedmont-style blues musicians. My second myth asked me whether it was Charlie Parker or Miles Davis that composed the song Donna Lee. This is actually one of the longest running unsettled debates in all of music history. It's been going on since the 40s. The tune came into existence back in 1947 and it's heavily based on the traditional song Back Home Again in Indiana. Now if you look back at the original 78 releases of this track, you're going to find Charlie Parker's name all over it. He's listed as the musician and he's listed as the writer. He had the original copyright. So when you look at that, it seems like it's a pretty clear answer, right? Not so much. If you look in Miles Davis's autobiography, he states that it was he who actually wrote that song in 1947, and that it was the record label's mistake that it was credited to Charlie Parker. Charlie Parker didn't know about it, the record label screwed it up, and by the time it hit the shelves, it was too late to make any sort of change to it. Now it gets even more confusing because they're actually both playing on that recording. It was a Charlie Parker session, but Miles Davis was on trumpet that afternoon. So one way or the other, it really doesn't give us a definitive answer, and the closest you can get to a definitive answer is a statement made by, that's right, Charles Mingus. In his kind of weird sort of autobiography, he claims that he had Miles Davis over one day when he actually had what he thought were two wives. That's Mingus who thought he had two wives, not Miles Davis. One of them was named Donna, the other was named Lee Marie, and Mingus said he was telling Miles Davis that he kind of took the best quality of each woman and he turned them into a woman in his mind named Donna Lee. So if you take that into account, it makes a bit more sense that Miles was influenced by it, but at the same time, Charlie Parker certainly makes his case because it's his name on the record and on the copyright. So it's pretty confusing. Both sides make a good case, but if you ask me, I think it's Miles Davis who wrote that one, but you can ask someone else and they're gonna have a different answer. My last myth asked if it's true that the Beatles' White Album was actually originally supposed to be two separate releases, one called Evolution and the other called Revolution. Ah yes, the White Album, aka The Beatles. It was the first album released on Apple Records, and it's also the only original released double album that the Beatles ever put out. But was it supposed to be two separate releases and not a double album? So many people back this argument up, but it's not true. Producer George Martin actually was firmly against it being a double album. He thought that the group should trim it down to their best songs and make it a single release. The band vehemently disagreed, and from beginning to end, this was supposed to be a double album. Well, maybe they all didn't vehemently disagree. Ringo felt that it would be great if they released them as two separate albums. He wanted it to be called the White Album and the Whiter Album, because he was really creative at the time, I guess. And George Harrison said that he actually thought there were a number of songs that would have been better served as B-sides on singles. So there were definitely some mentions that this could have been two separate releases or just not a double album. But then you take into account the fact that when the Beatles threw all these songs on there, it helped them get out of their EMI contract quicker. There's so many ins and outs on this, but in the end, this was supposed to be a double album, and that's why it was released that way. So those are my myths for this week. Be sure to check back here every Friday as I delve into some of the coolest stories in music history. If you've got a myth you want me to check out, email it to me at thedailyguru@gmail.com. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook right here, and I'll see you guys again next time.